These are the video notes for lesson 2.7 through 2.9. Okay, when we have a negative exponent, it does not mean the value is negative. It means we have to perform a very specific operation. So I'm going to do some side work here for today's first example. So what that means is we're going to take the base, which is 3, and write the reciprocal of it. So the reciprocal of 3 is 1 over 3, and then we're going to attach the exponent that was there originally, but change it to a positive. This is how we transform negative exponents. We cannot leave our final answers as negative exponents, and it's an operation that has to be performed. So just like 1 plus 1 is 2, that's adding two numbers, 3 to the negative 2 power is 1 over 3 squared. So some of you may not know that or have had difficulty with that in the past. So that is how you deal with negative exponents, and then this would simply be 1 over 9. So going back to my example, this would be 1/9, 2 cubed is 8, so I'm going to put 8 over 1, and then common denominator, negative 71 over 9. Okay, taking a look at the next example, this would be 1 over 2 cubed, 2 squared is 4, minus 1/4. So that's 1/8 plus 4 over 1. I'm going to find a common denominator of 8. And then that would be 31 over 8. Just double check that. 33 minus 2. Yeah, 31. Okay, yeah. Okay, try these examples on your own. This is going to be 1 over 3 squared plus 4 over 9. 1 over 9 plus 4 over 9 is 5 over 9. Next example, this is going to be negative 1 over 2 squared plus 4. Negative 1/4 plus 4 over 1, common denominator. And that's 15 over 4. Remember, this is not part of the base, so we just bring it down into our work. Okay, next example, this is going to be 5 times 1 over 3 squared. This one is actually going to be 2, just 2. For this one right here, because the base is in the denominator, the reciprocal would go to the numerator, so that's going to be 2. And now we have 5 times 1/9 plus 2 over 1. 5 times 1/9 is 5 over 9 plus 2 over 1. Then I'm going to find my common denominator, which is 9, and that's going to be 23 over 9. Okay, so the new one here is if the denominator has a negative exponent, it goes into the numerator because that's the reciprocal. Okay, so the next problem is a little bit more complicated. I'm going to do this off to the side on the left. So I have negative 3 squared over 2 to the negative third. We actually need to deal with this denominator first. What's going to happen is he is going to go to the numerator with the current numerator, negative 3 squared. So this is going to be negative 3 squared times 2 cubed. And if you need to put this over 1 to see that they're both in the numerator, you can do that. The negative 3 squared is not going to move because it doesn't have a negative exponent. Only time you move things, move bases, is if it has a negative exponent. So then this would be negative 9 times 8, which is negative 72. So all of this turns into negative 72 minus, and then this will be 1 over 2. I'm going to find a common denominator, which is 2. And then I'm going to get negative 145 over 2. Okay, try these examples. Negative 2 times 1/3 plus 1/9. So that's negative 2/3 plus 1/9. Common denominator is 9. And that would be negative 5/9. Okay, next example. When you have a fraction raised to a negative exponent, you're just going to write the reciprocal of that fraction. So reciprocal of 1/2 is 2 over 1. Instead of writing 2 over 1, you can just write 2, and then the exponent becomes positive. Plus 3 times 1 over 2 squared. So this will be 4 plus 3 times 1/4, which is 4 over 1 plus 3 over 4. Common denominator is 4. And this will be 19 over 4. Okay, this next example looks very complicated. We want to do what's in parentheses first. So this is 1 minus 2 over 4, which is 1 minus 1/2, which you should know is just 1/2. So I'm going to rewrite this as half, negative 2 plus 1. Anything to the 0 power is 1, so that's why 2 to the 0 is 1. Now I'm going to write 2 squared. We did this in a previous lesson, plus 1, which is 4 plus 1, which is 5. This part might be confusing, so you might want to go back a little bit, but when you have a fraction to a negative exponent, the fraction you write the reciprocal of, so the reciprocal of 1 over 2 is 2 over 1. And then there becomes 2 squared. So instead of putting over 1, I just write it as 2. Okay, I'm going to do some side work here. This is going to be 2 minus 1/2. 2 minus 1/2 is 1.5, which is 3 over 2. So I'm going to change this to 3 over 2 squared minus 1. 3 over 2 squared is 9 over 4 minus, I'm just going to write 4 over 4 as 1 to get a common denominator, and then my answer is 5 over 4. Okay, try these examples on your own. This all becomes 1 plus 1 over 3 squared, which is 1 plus 1/9. When you have a whole number and fraction, you can just smush them together to get this as your final answer. If you really do prefer finding a common denominator, you'll end up with 10 over 9, which is the same as 1 and 1/9. This part all becomes 1 because that 0 is dealing with everything in the parentheses. So this problem is much easier than it appears. Okay, the next example, this all becomes 1. And so this first thing times 1 is going to be itself. So I'm just going to write this as my problem now. Before we kept the 1 here because it was 1 plus. This is multiply, so you can just ignore that part now. So this is going to be 2 over 1 plus 1/2. This is 2 and 1 and 1/2. We don't work with mixed numbers and complex fractions, so I'm going to change that to an improper fraction. Okay, so then this is going to be 2 divided by 3 over 2, which is 2 times 2/3. Nothing reduces, so my answer is 4/3. Stop working in the complex fraction. I've said this before, and people keep giving me homeworks where they keep like crossing out and doing work in there. You can't. You have to simplify complex fractions. You must rewrite complex fractions. Do not cross out in complex fractions.